Assalamu alaikum, it's 8:30. We're live from the studios of British Muslim TV here in Wakefield with this week's edition of Questions with me, your host, Mohammed Shafiq. We're broadcasting now on Sky Channel 752 and across social media at British Muslim TV. Wherever you are joining us from the world, a very warm welcome. We want you to comment on the big stories we're covering tonight. You can call us now on 01924 231 083 or message us on the WhatsApp number which is on the screen now. And if you're watching this on Facebook Live, you can post your comments in the chat box and we'll read some of them out on air later. Now, I want to start the program by talking directly to you all at home. For nearly 2 years, we as a nation have made so many sacrifices during this coronavirus pandemic. Many of our family members have died and we still miss their presence in our lives. Now, the route to protect those of us remaining is the vaccine. And over the last year, we have seen over 80% of you get vaccinated, thereby protecting yourself and your families. Now, despite the fake news, lies being peddled by the anti-vaxxers, we all trust the NHS to look after us and our loved ones as part of their solemn trust in us and the solemn trust we have placed in the doctors and nurses. Now, as the Prime Minister Boris Johnson announces the booster campaign to protect from the Omicron variant, we have a simple choice to make. Do we get boosted and protect ourselves and our families, or are we going to be duped by the anti-vaxxers who have no medical or scientific background? The weeks and months ahead are going to be difficult, but if we together can do the right thing, so the plea from me and everybody here at British Muslim TV is to get your booster, and therefore let's protect each other. In tonight's programme, we head to Woodstock in Canada to talk to the Vice President of the Muslim Association of Woodstock about life in Canada for Muslims and the rise of Islamophobia. We then head to Manchester, talk to the political commentator Hamid al-Mashriqi about the dreadful and evil incident in which a Sri Lankan citizen, Priyantha Kumara, who is 48 years old, a general manager at a Pakistani textile factory in the eastern city of Sialkot, was brutally murdered, attacked and killed. What does this do for Pakistan's reputation around the globe? We'll talk about that. And then we finish off in Sheffield with put my teeth back in. We finish off in Sheffield with Radio Broadcaster Mohammed Shafaqat reviewing the year for Imran Khan and politics in Pakistan. So we want to hear from you tonight. You can call us on 01924 231 083 or you can message us on British Muslim TV across social media. Alternatively, you can send us a WhatsApp message. The number is on the screen. The questions we're considering tonight: does the ever-increasing Islamophobia worry you about living in the West? How can a nation claiming to be Muslim see a man being lynched and killed in Sialkot? And how do you review Imran Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan's year in office? And what's your aspiration for the coming year? Please share your thoughts on these questions and the topics we are covering on 01924 231 083. You can message us on WhatsApp or post on social media and we'll read some of them out throughout the program. Let's get started on the first story. Canada has always been a country of immense tolerance and has been a welcoming place for immigrants, refugees and Muslims for decades. Since the September the 11th attack, life has been more difficult. Politicians and the media peddle in anti-Muslim comments, as the recent general election there demonstrated, and policies which have seen at least 3 terrorist attacks. The most recent is the Pakistani family knocked down and killed in London, Ontario in Canada. What impact does these increased violence directed at Muslims have on those living and working in Canada? What are the Muslim community and organisations doing to help foster better relations between all communities? Now, since 2009, the Muslim Association of Woodstock, a small town in the province of Ontario in Canada, has been engaged in that vital work to bring communities together. They have a diverse team which is engaged in this important work to tackle Islamophobia and, in essence, to provide reassurance to all communities. And ever since the London, Ontario terrorist attack, Canadian Muslims have been asking the question, are Muslims really safe in Canada? Mohammed Ismail is Vice President of the Muslim Association of Woodstock. He was born in the United Kingdom, but moved to Canada where he is leading this important work. I'm pleased to say Mohammed Ismail is live on British Muslim TV from Woodstock in Ontario in Canada. Dear brother, assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam, brother Mohammed. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, tell us, where is Woodstock in terms of in Canada?
So Woodstock is about 2 hours south of Toronto, which I'm sure most people in the UK have heard of. And we're about 2 hours north of Windsor. Yes, it causes confusion all the time when I speak to people back home. We have the same kind of names and towns in the UK as in Canada as well. So we're about halfway between Toronto, halfway between Windsor. Some of the other towns next to us are Kitchener, a larger town, Stratford, where all the arts and culture takes place, and Hamilton, again, where the port city. So we're quite central in that respect.
Yeah, thank you so much for that geography lesson. That really helps us. First, tell us, why did you choose to leave the UK and settle in Canada?
My wife is Canadian, so after spending about 15, 16 years with me in the UK and having lived in several parts, I'm originally born in London, but I've lived in Manchester. I've lived there for about 5, 6, 7 years, and then we decided to move back to East Anglia, where we lived once upon a time, and we're living in a small town called Bury St Edmunds. So after spending a few years there, we decided to move to Canada to look after elderly parents and family for her here in her hometown.
That's really nice, the fact that she sacrificed some time so that she could spend here, and you are doing the same thing for her family. That's quite touching, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I hope she appreciates you, looks after you. What
she does indeed.
Good, alhamdulillah. What has life been like for you and fellow Muslims in Canada?
Alhamdulillah. I mean, for the majority of our community, they get along, with the wider community. There is, I suppose, until recently, there wasn't really an issue. I think, and obviously Canada, over the last 4 or 5 years, since we've seen the rise of Trump and the alt-right and the right wing in the US, and also some of that is filtered into Europe and into the UK, and we see refugees and migrants not being so welcome in Europe now, and also in the States. A lot of people are looking towards Canada. So we've had an increase in immigration, and a lot more people are coming to Canada. Historically, people came to Canada, but we usually came from Europe. Now, the predominant migrants and refugees are obviously coming from countries which are outside of Europe. So we're seeing a lot more people of color moving here. So obviously that has kind of shaken the apple cart, as it were, a little bit. People are saying, well, there's too many people coming all of a sudden. But in reality, immigration is always, Canada is a nation of immigrants. So nearly everybody has come from somewhere. The indigenous population only make up around 3-4% of the population of about 38 million people. So it doesn't make a difference. I mean, I live in a town which is a British town. The predominant 1 in 3 Canadians is of British origin. So you can't then complain about others coming in, especially so many people come from England,
Yeah, and the reaction of the Canadian Muslim communities, very diverse community, to that terrorist attack in London, Ontario, sent shockwaves through that community. How was it where you are in a smaller town like Woodstock?
I mean, London, Ontario is only half an hour's drive from us, so it's very close to us. And of course, it came as a shock because a family are just going out for an evening walk and somebody runs them down on the road. It's unseen in Canada. So hence the reason why all the politicians turned up. Our Prime Minister turned up in London, the opposition party and all that. And they're going to have conferences about how to tackle Islamophobia. But as for our community here in Woodstock, we're quite a rural community. Woodstock is a dairy, or was one of the dairy capitals of Canada. So we have some of the most fertile land in the whole of North America. So it's predominantly a farming community, but also a religious community in the sense that we have a lot of Dutch and German people here. You may have heard of the Amish and Mennonite communities. Similarly, with some of the Dutch Reform. So they, like where I live in the township of Norwich, which is just in the outskirts of Woodstock, is a predominantly Dutch community. They've been here for more than 100 years, but they're a very religious community in the sense that the faith is very important for them. They don't watch TV that much. They don't drink alcohol. The kids go to Bible school. The kids are very disciplined and very, the etiquettes of the Islamic way, they follow in many respects. So So when they see people of other faith, it's okay for them. It's not an issue. So they're quite welcoming, and obviously people around us, they're used to seeing the Mennonite community dresses a bit differently. They dress conservatively. The ladies wear longer dresses. They also kind of cover their hair. So it's not too different. But obviously, when they see Muslims who are different color, who are brown or black or non-white, obviously it can cause a few issues. But generally speaking, in our rural communities, there's never really been an issue. I've not heard of anybody having an issue so much. That doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist. Of course it does. But there's no physical danger, you could say.
We've got a couple of minutes before the break. I just wanted to ask you, tell us a bit more about the Muslim Association Woodstock.
The Muslim Association Woodstock has been around in some sort of fashion for around 40 years. As you can imagine, people come to a small town. It's the first stepping stone for many of them, and then they find better jobs and then they move on. And that's always been the issue in these smaller kind of towns. Same thing, I suppose, happened in the UK once upon a time. So, we've had lots of starts and stops in our community, but over the last 10 years, you can say, we've kind of established ourselves. And obviously, we pray currently. We don't have a masjid in our town, but we're currently in the process of raising funds. And hopefully, inshallah, in the springtime, we're hoping to, we bought a piece of land, so we're hoping to start construction of the first masjid in our county. But alhamdulillah, we're quite well integrated in our community. Our community is quite diverse. We have people from all over the world in small numbers. So, and also the charity tends to lead. We try to set an example. So at the moment with the big Christmas, we're participating in lots of local activities and helping local charities and giving money and all that sort of stuff to women's shelter and children's aid and homeless, feed the homeless and all this stuff. People, we're a bit more integrated because the community has been here. Some of them have been here 40, 50 years.
Well, I know you're going to stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. Mohammed Ismail is going to stay with us, and then we'll continue the important conversation. But just want to give you that COVID cases today, 78,610 reported cases in the last 24 hours. We'll have a look at that with our guest in the second part of the program as well. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll take more of your calls, 01924 231 083. Don't go anywhere. Mohammed Ismail is our special guest joining us live from Canada. Join us on the other side of these very important messages. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV. We're live from our studios here in sunny Wakefield. Well, it's not really sunny, but you know what I mean. Anyway, we're taking your calls on 01924 231 083. You can get in touch with us on our social media handles. British Muslim TV. Mohammed Ismail is my special guest, joining us from across the pond, live from Woodstock in Canada. Mohammed Ismail, before the break, you were telling us about the association. What sort of activities are you personally involved in terms of particularly focusing on interfaith? Because just during the break, we were talking that if you have a smaller community, dawah work tends to be a lot more easier than, say, being in a big city like Toronto or London or Manchester.
And I agree with that. We've in our small community, obviously the Muslim community is the most diverse of any community as you can imagine, because we have lots of different churches in our community, but they're all predominantly white. So what we've done is we've tried to get, because we pray at the moment we pray in the basement of a church which we rent. So wow. It allows us to mingle with Christian groups that we normally wouldn't do. So what we've done is we created a interfaith group, should we say, 4 or 5 churches. But unfortunately, COVID came along, so we couldn't progress that forward. But that group has now grown to maybe about 10 members that really want to come together and see how we can work together in terms of cross-cultural and faith understanding. And also, like I explained before the break, we do have our community here in Woodstock is a bit more religious than in the UK. You wouldn't find as many. Not to say that you don't find religious people in the UK. You do, obviously, within the wider community. But here, religion is important in our community because within the Dutch, the German, and even some of the British community, faith is an important aspect of it. So it does make it easier to connect with these groups, to use Islam, and also to explain our position. We're not in the business of converting people. No. It's not about conversion. It's more about explaining what Islam is about and what Muslims are about, and how we're contributing to the global economy.
Now, I'm fascinated as someone who's chosen to live in Canada to support your wife and her family. What are the differences between, say, life here in the UK as a Muslim, say, compared to Canada and your life there now?
I think Canadians, generally speaking, work a lot harder than we do in the UK. They have less spare time. Because if you think about it, if you start a job in the UK, you normally get 4 weeks holiday. In Canada, they're starting, if you start a job like I did, you only get 2 weeks. So you don't get as much spare time, and people tend to be a lot more busier. So if you want to have it's like if I was in the UK, I could ring someone up in Manchester, do you want to go out tonight? They'll probably say yes, or tomorrow we'll go out. But here in Canada, you need to book an appointment with someone. So it's technically you may not see someone for a week. So life is a lot more faster, a lot more in that way busier. As Muslims, it's in some ways a good thing because it keeps our community busy, and also obviously the winter, is a huge difference because you get 4 or 5 months of solid winter here, as opposed to in England, you probably get 2 or 3 days of snow if we're lucky, and the whole country comes to a standstill. Well, here you could get 3 or 4 feet of snow, and life just continues. You have to continue, So people need to be a bit more disciplined. I suppose coming to Canada, you don't take it for. Living in the UK, you don't always take that for. You don't always think about that. But when you come to Canada, you've got to plan. Like I've got to wake up half an hour, 45 minutes earlier in the morning to clean the snow. Then I can have a shower. Then I can get to work. When I get home, I'll probably have snow on my driveway. I'll probably have to clean that and so forth. So, there's a lot of things like that you need to take into account.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about the country coming to a standstill when it comes to a bit of snow. That's really true. Do you get back to the UK often, or obviously has the pandemic played a?
I haven't. Obviously, my family would love for me to come back, come and visit, but because the pandemic, I've not been able to visit. But inshallah, I'm hoping once the pandemic is over and it's safe to travel, I can do so. Because at the same time, I also need to keep my community safe here in our town, and most of my colleagues and friends, we're not traveling anywhere, so. I think that's the least that I can do also. So, we're just trying to hunker down and get through this period, as it were, and see where we end up.
Yeah, well, looking forward to welcoming you up to Wakefield and Manchester
inshallah.
Next time you come, inshallah. Now, and tell us a bit about, I'm really fascinated. So you use a church hall in the cellar to do your Jummah. What sort of numbers do you get?
Before the pandemic, we were getting around 60, 70 people. And then when the pandemic came, not everybody that comes to pray with us lives in our town. Some of them work in our town because the local, the town used to be predominantly agriculture, but now the town is trying to reconfigure itself and reshape itself into an industrial hub. So we have Toyota that's come here and opened up a huge factory about 10 years ago. And obviously Toyota comes and obviously other factories follow. Jobs follow. So obviously you have people coming from a wide area to work in our city. So before the pandemic, we were getting about 60, 70 musallis, men, women, and children coming every Friday. But now we only get around 40 because some people are working from home, others have lost their jobs or whatever. So, it is what it is. I suppose every community has been affected by COVID, so it's just what it is.
Yeah, and where does that funding come from? I mean, obviously, you don't get any funding from any government. It's very much grassroots and community giving.
Yeah, so the established community that's been living in the town, they've been very supportive, so they help to raise money. And obviously, we have London, Ontario, where that terrorist attack took place. In London, Ontario, 10% of London, Ontario's population is Muslim. So there's about 30 to 40,000 Muslims about half an hour's drive from us. So they've also been helping fund the masjid project that we have currently on our timeline. And also we've been visiting Toronto and the Greater Toronto area where another 5-6% of the population is Muslim. So Ontario has a lot of Muslims around. Canada has about 1.2 million Muslims, of which half, or just over 500,000 live in Ontario alone. So there's a lot of people we can tap into for money, and there's always people that are willing to support us. So and they appreciate that we're coming from a small community. So we're always open in terms of we're from a small community. We need to have to assist us. So literally we're the last major town on the main highway, which is the 401, which is equivalent to the M1 in the UK, that doesn't have a masjid. So people are very interested in assisting us because who's this town that doesn't have a masjid? So that kind of helps us as well, in that respect.
Yeah, it does massively. And when you look at Canada and you look at the Muslim community, you look at what's happening in Quebec with that sister who was a teacher who was forced to have her hijab removed. How do you assess the challenges for Muslims in Canada?
I think we need to separate the argument because Quebec is French and they have their own, issues sometimes with Islam, as they do in France as well. So it's the same kind of issue. So I think the Bill 21, I understand why they implemented it because what it does is the whole point of living in an open society is that everyone can participate. It shouldn't make a difference how we dress, where we come from, what our background is. I don't really care if my doctor's white, black, brown, straight, gay, bisexual. What does that mean to me? It means zero. But unfortunately, when we put these barriers into place, then obviously it restricts people's ability to participate. And then we accuse those people of not participating. So obviously, Bill 21 makes it difficult for Muslims and for Sikhs and other communities who are visible minorities and also visible, Sikhs wear turbans, sisters wear hijab, there's other communities that wear other clothing. So it kind of restricts our participation in that society. So I think it has caused issues in Canada. And the federal government might step in at some point, but we'll have to wait and see.
Now, when we saw the London, Ontario terrorist attack, we saw Erin O'Toole, who's the federal leader of the Conservative Party, Justin Trudeau, and the NDP leader as well, Jagmeet Singh. All of them standing together, and we saw that definition of Islamophobia. There's some real coming together politically, which hasn't happened before. Are you hopeful that out of this real sadness and evil, some good will come out?
I think it will. I mean, it will take time. The issue, I think some of the issues with the laws that were passed previously, and I was speaking to our local MP, who's a conservative, and he told me that when they tried to implement a law on Islamophobia in the past, the reason he vetoed that and voted against that was not because he doesn't agree that Islamophobia doesn't exist. He agrees that it exists, but they wanted to put Islamophobia with other policies, which he didn't agree with. So I think if we just tackle Islamophobia as a single issue, it does make it easier to try and get people on board and to try and tackle it. But I'm hopeful that within 2 or 3 years' time, we will get this. We will have a bill in place or some laws in place that give greater protection to Muslims.
How hopeful are you in terms of Woodstock and your ambition to build a purpose-built mosque, that you'll get that done, you'll get the funding, because obviously it's going to be grassroots, it's not going to be given to you on a plate by governments, that you'll achieve your goal and you'll have that mosque for your small community?
Yeah, so at the moment we've managed to raise $250,000, which allowed us to buy a piece of land, 1 acre piece of land in our town. And then we need a further $600,000 to start construction. So I was just on the call with the architect yesterday, and we're being a small community and in some ways a diverse community. Our architect's a female Muslim lady. So alhamdulillah, she's going to help us with our masjid project. So inshallah, I'm hopeful. We've spoken to a lot of people within the London community and also within the Toronto community and further afield in Ottawa and Montreal. And inshallah, they'll have to help us. So I'm hopeful that within a year or 2 or 3, we should have we'll start the construction in April, May time next year, and then proceed to finishing that project within say 2 to 3 years, inshallah.
Mohammed Ismail, my final question. What's your message to people watching this around the United Kingdom and Europe about encouraging them to maybe think about settling in Canada and having a home in Canada?
I mean, we're always trying to encourage Muslims to move to Canada, and we have groups in Toronto that do that as well. Obviously, in Canada, to move to Canada, you need to have a skill set. Yeah. So generally speaking, it was a hindrance once upon a time for Muslims to move to Canada and to the US, I suppose, was that they took a small percentage of refugees, but you had to move here. You could only move to Canada if you had a certain skill set. So if you were a qualified or educated person, you could move to Canada. So that still stands to this day. But the other point is, we have to remember is that if you're coming from Europe and you have the qualifications, generally you can get a job pretty faster. But if you're coming from outside of Europe, then it can be a bit difficult.
Yeah, it can be very difficult. But I think you've really sold it. And we forgive you for deserting us, but we know why you did that. Thank you so much, Ismail. My love and prayers to everybody in Woodstock, particularly your family, and I wish them well.
Thank you, Brother Mohammed. Thank you.
That was the Vice President of the Muslim Association of Woodstock, a small town in Ontario, Canada, joining us live. After the break, we head to Manchester and talk to the political commentator Hamid al-Mashriqi about the Sialkot incident. And as I was saying, 78,610 positive cases in the last 24 hours. This is getting serious. So if you got a chance, do get your booster, as I said at the top of the programme. We'll take a break, as I said. We'll then head to Manchester and we'll take your calls on 01924 231 083. Don't go anywhere. After these important messages, we'll be back. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq. Fascinating discussion there with Mohammed Ismail in Canada. Now, I just wanted to give you the latest. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson gave a press conference today in Downing Street, in which it was also reported that 78,610 people had a positive case of coronavirus in the last 24 hours. The previous record was 68,000 on the 8th of January. Remember that at the peak of the second wave earlier on this year. The Prime Minister was joined by Professor Chris Whitty, who is the Chief Medical Officer for England. And he said that records will be broken on this in the next few weeks. And he said people should, as a priority, recognise that they need to look after their social distancing and run up to Christmas, look at the social mixing in the run-up to Christmas, do testing, lateral flow testing. And the Prime Minister said it's absolutely vital that everybody gets a booster jab. And he said in some areas that the rates are doubling every 2 days. And he said, and I quote, "I'm afraid we're also seeing the inevitable increase in hospitalizations, up by 10% nationally, week on week, and by almost a third in London." And Professor Whitty also said, which is an interesting point, that the country was experiencing two separate epidemics, one driven by the rapidly growing Omicron variant and the other still by the Delta variant. We'll keep an eye on that, as I said, in the weeks to come. But when you get a chance, please get your booster. And if you haven't had your first or even second jab, get it, because it will just protect you from getting seriously ill. Now, as I said, we're going to take your calls on 01924 231 083. We're obviously going to be talking about a very sensitive issue now. And so if there's children around, just be conscious about this particular topic. Now, Pakistan as a nation has been in shock and horror as a Sri Lankan citizen named as Priyantha Kumara Diyawardana, who worked at a textile factory in the city of Sialkot, was attacked, lynched and then killed. His attackers, after killing him, then set his body on fire. Now, he had good relation with his fellow workers and was well regarded by everybody the media had spoken to. He'd been accused of blasphemy, and the mob decided they were the judge and jury, which in itself is an act of terror that should be condemned by all. Now, the key questions are, where were the police authorities? Where were the management of the factory? And what has led to this culture in Pakistan that by the mere accusation of blasphemy can sometimes lead to murder and killing? And then there's the reputational damage to Pakistan's standing in the world has been huge and immense. The authorities are determined to bring the culprits to justice. Hamid al-Mashriqi is a political commentator and is a regular contributor here on British Muslim TV. I'm pleased to say he joins us live from the great city of Manchester. Hamid, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you back on.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, Shafiq. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, sir. Always good to have this conversation with you. Tell us, what was your reaction when you heard about the brutal murder in Sialkot?
Thank you very much, Shafiq. To be honest, it was so shocking that I could not believe it. I mean, for good 2-3 hours, even with the confirmation of the news, I was saying, it can't be happening in Pakistan. I mean, I want to say through your program to all your viewers that believe me that Pakistan is one of the most tolerant and tolerant society, and we are very, very work for the human rights in terms of people working from abroad or people working from other countries. We have so much respect from them, and either he is Muslim or non-Muslim. And this act of barbaricism, this act of inhumanity is being condemned by every sect, every profession of life, every aspect of life, everybody who is, either it is from religious clerics, either it was social media, either it was government officers. Pakistan Army Chief has very openly condemned it, Prime Minister condemned it. So it was a shocking act for the nation as well, that how can we cannot have the tolerance, or if somebody is accused, then there is no way that anybody has a right to give a decision and to kill somebody without any justice, without any proof. So it was very much condemned by everybody from Pakistan. Entire nation was in shock. I mean, I want everybody to know that in Pakistan, I could not find a single person which I can point out who could have said that this thing can, who could have said anything in favor of this barbaric act. So this act was very much condemned, and still the public of Pakistan is very much in shock, and people are willing and people are demanding to the government that the culprits should bring to justice. And because there is a capital punishment in Pakistan, and people are demanding for the capital punishment for the culprits.
Now, I asked a question earlier, where were the police and the law authorities? Where was the management and security in that particular textile factory? What did you make of their absence?
I'll tell you two things. One, it happened in a small city of Sialkot. There is not, we hardly have any kind of, law and order situation there. Secondly, there's very few number of police. I'm not defending. There has to be there. The police response should have been much more quicker, swift and prompt. There is a negligence from the police, and it is under investigation. There is a committee.
Well, according to reports, it was nearly an hour before the police arrived, and by that stage, he was already dead.
Exactly. That is the thing, because it was in a factory in a remote area. And
was it remote area?
It is, yes, it is not in the city. It is not in the city. All the factories are remote areas, and as I tell you that police do not have, so much, I should say, police officers available all the time there, because you hardly have any law and order problem there. I mean, I have been to Sialkot a few times. I've been to other neighboring cities, Daska and other cities. So, I mean, it's always, it's known as the exporters hub for Pakistan. It is the city who does the largest export to all over the world, including Europe. It is known to make excellent footballs, sports goods, and surgical goods. So this city has never that kind of recognition that where people would get mad and the mob will take such kind of action. That's why there are many questions that there might be some ill motive behind it, which has somebody may have used it to take his own personal reason or revenge or anything. But let's see what investigation ends up to.
Now, Hamid, isn't the reality that there is now a culture in Pakistan in terms of blasphemy that has led to numerous people who think it's okay for anyone who wants to accuse any person of blasphemy, that they can take the law into their own hands and do whatever they want?
I unfortunately, I have to agree with you that because of lack of confidence and lack of trust on our judiciary system, some of the, I should say again, misguided people believe that they can be the judge and the jury and they can decide it, and they can blame anybody for blasphemy. It is a very, very illegal act. It is a wrong act. But yes, the people, some of the people did support this thing, but they are very, very, very minor in numbers, and the government is trying to tackle them. And on top of it, I always emphasize that our judiciary system needs to be much more active in terms of punishing the culprits, in terms of stopping the misuse of blasphemy law, because I always say that any country, the law is not the wrong thing. Rather, the implementation or the misuse could lead it to the wrong results. So the thing is, the government has to make sure that the blasphemy law has to not be used for somebody's personal grudge, some motives, or illegal usage. Blasphemy law needs to be redefined in terms of punishing if somebody has been accused wrongly or has been killed wrongly, then the culprits should get the same punishment.
Now, we know, as you said, that the scholars, the ulama, whichever background, whether they're Sunni or Shia, Jubandi, Brelvi, all of them unanimously have been very vocal, and we saw those delegations go to the Sri Lankan High Commission. I think the chairman of the Council for Islamic Ideology, Ayaz, Dr. Ayaz, he was there.
Yes.
Sabzada Sanasi Burahman and many others had gone to give solidarity with the Sri Lankan. That's a lot different to what it would have been like in previous occasions.
I agree with you, but because there are two factors in it. One, this is ever first time that a foreign citizen has been targeted with the misuse of this blasphemy law, and the nation is in shock that a friendly country like Sri Lanka, whose citizen was working here, and he's been killed like this, brutally killed. So, it was a unanimous decision from the nation that we should apologize not only to the High Commission. As a nation, we apologize to the Sri Lankan nation, and we have all our condolences with the grieved family.
Yeah, that's really important. I want to ask you one more question. Now, you spend a lot of time on Indian news channels, and life can be very difficult in terms. They don't. Well, I think they like you because you give them a good debate and discussion. Just tell us, how do you find that experience? Because when I see stuff on social media, they shout, they scream. It's not like an interview like me and you doing now, having a conversation. How do you cope with that? How do you keep so calm? You never raise your voice. You never are angry. You're always smiling. What's the secret, sir?
Shafiq, there are two things. I always believe when you are on when you are on the right side of the story, then you don't need to shout. You just need to convey your message. That's the first thing. If you are confident yet you're talking about the truth, you're not making a false news, you're not talking unprofessional thing, you're talking to the logic with the explanation, then there is no point to lose your nerve. The Indian media, I always say that they're very unprofessional, and that's why their credibility in terms of international news recognition is on a very low level. And nobody uses Indian news channel as their source of information. And I have told them many times that you are losing your credibility because of your unprofessionalism and because of your intolerance towards any opposite, remarks or any debate where you get challenged from the person who's telling you their truth. So I think if you are talking truth, if you are confident enough to explain your point of view, there is no need to be panic.
Well, Hamid, you do a great job, and always patient and always smiling. So you're going to continue smiling. We're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to carry on this important conversation around the Sialkot incident, but generally speaking to the broadcaster and political commentator Hamid Al-Mashriqi, who's joining us live from Manchester. We're going to have some important messages. Then we're going to come back and we'll take some of your calls as well. 01924 231 083. Don't go anywhere. I'll be waiting, and Hamid Al-Mashriqi will also be waiting. Assalamu alaikum, we're back. I should put my teeth back in. It's been horrendously tonight. Anyway, assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV. We're coming to you from our studios here in Wakefield in West Yorkshire. Now, we're taking your calls on 01924 231 083 if you want to get in touch with us on social media handles, British Muslim TV. Hamid Al-Mashriqi, the broadcaster and political commentator, is still with us, and he's my special guest joining us live from the city of Manchester. Hamid, what did you make of the damage to Pakistan's reputation internationally?
Yeah, there's a very significant damage with any kind of incident like that, unfortunately. But I will still say that there was very well managed damage control as well by the immediate reaction from Imran Khan, from Prime Minister, then from Chief of Army Staff, then all the political leadership and all religious leadership as well. On top of it, Prime Minister Imran Khan personally spoke with the President of Sri Lanka, and to be honest, we more than condolences, we have to ask for apology and a pardon as well on that sad incident. And on, I think, yes, our enemy did use this unfortunate incident very badly against us, and we need to be careful, and we need to tell the nation that anything happens in Pakistan, Pakistan is under a microscopic eye of the enemies. So Pakistan's enemy and the Western world and America, they all look for any opportunity like that where they can malign Pakistan. I mean, so nation has to be more conscious, and the public has to be more responsible.
Sorry, just on that then, was it the wrong decision of the Pakistan government not to participate in the democracy summit which Joe Biden, the US president, had last week?
Shafiq, I believe it was a wrong decision. To be honest, somebody asked me as well in the other day, because I understand that Pakistan's point of view was that they did not recognize so many other democratic countries, like they didn't invite Turkey, they didn't invite China, they didn't invite other countries. But I think instead of boycotting this kind of opportunity, rather Pakistan should have utilized this opportunity to explain the world that this is the hypocrisy or dual standards of American democracy itself, while they're calling Indian and other democracies, where Indian government is like a fascist government now. And on the other hand, they did not invite so many other real democracies. So I think it is always good to participate in conferences like that rather than being boycotted.
Yeah. What did you make of the Indian media reaction to this incident in Sialkot? I think you spend a lot of time on these channels, as we were saying before the break. What's the reaction been?
To be honest, as I said, they were looking for an opportunity like that to grill Pakistan, to defame Pakistan, to tell the world that Pakistan is living like in a cave time or something like that. So they did not leave any opportunity to defame and malign Pakistan and Pakistan's state, Pakistan's public, Pakistan's institutions. But I always say that because of Indian media's its own credibility, every propaganda falls against them. Because when they show that there is a 5th floor on the Serena Hotel in Kabul and there is no 5th floor, then people make them laugh, make their jokes. Then when they say that, then when they use video games clip to show that Pakistan is attacking in Afghanistan, so they make their laugh themselves. So that's why they did their best propaganda against Pakistan, but I think they could not be succeed because of their own failures. And on the other hand, I always say that Pakistan needs to work on its weaknesses, whether it is internal weakness, whether it is external weakness.
Now, that evil mindset amongst the people who killed this textile factory manager, the Sri Lankan, how do we defeat that? How does Pakistan defeat that?
I believe that because it is a very, very minute minority, there is a very, very few people who have, unfortunately, this kind of mindset. I mean, there are two ways. One, bring them to the justice. Second, educate them. And third, and the foremost thing, the rule of law, the implementation of law. People should have the confidence they cannot take the law in their hands. And if anything goes wrong, they should have trust and faith on the justice system that if we will report it, the person will go to the court, whether it is blasphemy law or whether it is misusing of blasphemy law, they will brought to the justice. If the justice prevail, trust me, Shafiq, the society will be much more safer, secure, and we can avoid any kind of incident like that.
Because isn't the reality that you talk about the people, a very small minority who might actually do something in terms of violence, but that mindset, that ideological mindset, which suggests that anybody who engages in blasphemy should be killed, is quite popular among some of the masses due to some of the protests we've seen in Pakistan over the years.
Yeah, I agree with you, Muhammad. It is getting popular, but again, we need to work and concentrate on those heads of the parties who promote this kind of mindset. And it's not about that we should put him behind the bar or something. Rather, we need to have a clear dialogue with them. And our ulamas, our Islamic scholars, it is responsibility of them to have an open debate with them, like we did it in past. In 1970s and 1971 constitution, there was a big Islamic debate within all ulamas about the Ahmadis and about the other sects and everything, and we came into a conclusion. So if something is coming in the society which is affecting the basic fabric of the society, then it is the responsibility of the ulama or religious scholars and the government to make them sit together, educate them, and let's reset the lines for the nation to follow, because this is a very few number of people who follow this ideology, but we need to educate them and we need to bring them to the justice if they do anything illegal.
Now, the president of Pakistan, Arif Alawi, has said that Priyantha Kumara, who was killed, his brother is also working in Pakistan and has urged people not to tarnish the whole Pakistan nation. And as you said, the ulama in Pakistan, for many different firqas and many different groups, have also been commended by Imran Khan and the government. How important is their role in terms of tackling this at a grassroots level?
Yes, it is very important. Their role is very important. And I would say, I mean, I am thankful to the people of Sri Lanka. I'm thankful to the government of Sri Lanka and the people and the grieved family, people as well, that they supported the government of Pakistan's actions against the culprits. And they do understand that this tragic incident happened beyond the control of the government. And the situation went out of control so quickly that there was hardly any reaction time for that. I mean, and then on the other hand, the Chief Minister and the government of Punjab is also taking measures to stop any kind of incident in future. That is the main thing. I mean, we cannot reverse what happened there, but it is government's responsibility to prevent any such incident in future and make sure that there should not be any tragic incident in future. And we always say thanks to the people of Sri Lanka who donate us 60,000 eyes just last year. They are the biggest eye donors for the Pakistan. So Pakistan is always grateful to Sri Lanka. Vice versa, Sri Lankans are grateful to Pakistan that Pakistan supported during the civil war of Tamil Tigers. And the peace in Sri Lanka is due to the efforts of Pakistan Army and Pakistan government supporting them for 20 years. So people of Sri Lanka acknowledge that. And I think it is one of a very classic friendly relation between two countries. Now,
a final question. Now, Pakistan media is absolutely obsessed, if you were to turn on any of these news channels, about this wedding. Maryam Nawaz, who is the daughter of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, his grandson is getting married, and it seems the whole media is obsessed with this. How do you assess it? Is it a private family affair, or is this being used by the opposition parties, but also by the governing party, PTI, to attack?
Shafiq, there are two aspects of that. One, we have to see whether it is with the will and with the consent of the family. Yes, it is. They do really want to promote it. They do really want it to have maximum airtime of our media. So they are happy with it. But on the other hand, unfortunately, I take it as a sad professionalism from our media that, media channels should not waste their airtime on such topics too much. Yes, you give a news. I do understand. It belongs to a big political family and everything. But you spend the whole moments and you're spending the hours of your transmission. It means that do we not have anything constructive to talk about on media? That is a question. I believe that there should not be that much time given to that wedding or any such wedding, whether it is our cricketers' weddings, whether it is other incident. Yes, we do have to give a time, but within the reasonable time frames, that there are so many other matters going on in the country to be discussed.
Let me ask you one final question. So how do you assess 2022 for Pakistan and its politicians?
Oh, it will be, I mean, within last, every year, it is tricky for Imran Khan, but 2022 is going to be very tricky because the reason is that this is the final year for Imran Khan to do his performance. And Imran Khan is under a lot of pressure because of the price hike, petroleum prices hike, and inflation in the country because of the dollar rates and pound rates. All these things are putting government on the back foot. But at the same time, government have a lot of opportunities to highlight its successes, highlight their achievements, to make the public vote for them again, because I believe that the consistency of democracy is very important. And on the second issue, that consistency of the policies of a successful government is very much important. But let the people decide that who is successful and who's been failure. But it will be a very test time for Imran Khan, because this 2021 was very hard in terms of public in Pakistan. They suffered in terms of financially, economically. But on the other hand, Pakistan have a bright future. Pakistan have, because CPEC is nearly ending. We are getting so many mega projects are going to be started. Our electricity deficit is going to be breaking even now. So we will not have much more load sharing in the coming year. Okay. So, I mean, I always look at the positives. So I believe that the coming years are better for Pakistan as long as there is a continuity of democracy and the public needs to support whosoever comes in power.
Well, sadly, we've reached the end of our time together, Hamid. It's always fascinating. It's always a joy to hear you.
I enjoy it.
Thank you so much. Let me wish you and your family well, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shafiq.
That was Hamid al-Mashriqi, the broadcaster and political commentator, joining us live there from Manchester. Now, after the break, we head to Sheffield with radio broadcaster Mohammed Shafaqat, reviewing the year for Pakistan politicians, including Imran Khan, and what now for politics in Pakistan as we say goodbye to 2021 and 2022. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV. We're in the last 30 minutes of the program, so wherever you are around the world watching this, a very warm welcome. Now, we've been concentrating on that Downing Street press conference. We seem to be having them a lot more regularly now than we were earlier on in the year. Professor Chris Whitty, who is the Chief Medical Officer for England, he was speaking at a Downing Street press conference, as I said, and he's warned that the UK is facing a real serious threat from the new coronavirus variant. Now, on Wednesday, as I said earlier, we've seen 78,610 new infections within 24 hours of a positive test. Now, Professor Whitty says the daily COVID case records, remember that's the highest we've had since January this year, he thinks it's going to be broken a number of times over the next few weeks as that rate goes up across the country. Now, in London, the majority of positive cases are Omicron. I can't even get the word right, but anyway, Omicron should be. And there's an increased number of Omicron patients now going into the NHS. They're going into hospital and they're going into intensive care. We don't know the full ratio. This is the exact quote, and I want to give it to you to emphasize the seriousness of this pandemic. And Professor Whitty says the exact ratios we don't know yet, but there will be substantial numbers, and that will begin to become apparent, in my view, soon after Christmas. And he says it will start before then, but in terms of the big numbers, I think there's a reasonably nailed on prospect. He says the UK now faces a real serious threat at the moment, and British people, he suggested this, should deprioritize certain social contacts. So that means cut down on the social contacts, and if you are meeting people who are vulnerable, members of your family over the Christmas period, get yourself a lateral flow test, and if you've got any of the symptoms, stay at home. We will, in the weeks to come, look at this again and again and again, and we'll hopefully get you some medical experts as well, so you can hear from the medical experts, as we've done throughout this pandemic here on British Muslim TV. Now, let's move on to our final story. This has been a challenging time for Imran Khan and his government in Pakistan in the year 2021. Inflation's rising and ever-increasing economic times for the people of Pakistan. Now, the opposition parties are saying that these are the dying days of the Imran Khan government. But the Prime Minister's pushed back and said that Pakistan's record in dealing with COVID-19, whereas we've got 78,000 people with a positive case, in Pakistan it's less than 300 in the whole of the country. And their record in tackling COVID-19 has been recognised by the World Health Organization and many countries around the world. And Prime Minister Imran Khan says inflation is not just a Pakistani problem. It's affecting all countries around the world. And as we see here in the UK as well. Mohammed Shafaqat is a radio broadcaster in Sheffield. He's a regular contributor to our programme and he takes a keen interest in Pakistani politics. And I'm pleased to say joining us live from Sheffield, just up the road from Wakefield. Mohammed Shafaqat, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the programme.
Walaikum salam, Shafiq, and it's nice to be on your program again, and always a pleasure.
You're looking good, if I may say so.
I'm trying. I'm not been too well, really, but I have to take out. I can never refuse you. That's the problem.
We love you.
But, mashallah, it's always a pleasure to come in.
Great Muslim TV loves you. I love you, and you're a great friend. So I'm always grateful for the conversations we have. Now, tell us, when you look back at 2021, how do you assess Imran Khan's record and that of his government?
It's been a tricky 2021 for the PTI government, for Imran Khan himself as a leader. The problem was that Imran Khan promised the world to the Pakistani public a lot of promises, especially when he was on the campaigner. And sometimes in politics, you say a lot of things before in opposition, but when you come into power and the ground realities are very different. So it's been a very tricky year, especially with the pandemic as well. And then this geopolitical situation with Afghanistan, huge challenges for Pakistan, economic challenges and domestic challenges, just like you were talking to your previous guest about what happened in Sialkot. So there's so many avenues that were making it life difficult for Imran Khan. But I think he has come out of it okay in the last few weeks, because the last few months has been quite difficult for him. He's lucky because he's got a very weak opposition, a divided opposition. But otherwise, I would be honest and frank. I'm a big fan of Imran Khan. People know I'm a big supporter of his new Naya Pakistan mission. But no doubt, it's been a very, very challenging time. And I think the biggest factor has been his team. His team has not lived up to expectations. They've got a great man up front. They've got a good leader. But the team has been very weak, and that's been highlighted. In particular, the Chief Minister of Punjab, Bazdar Saab, nice guy. I'm a nice guy. You're a nice guy, Shafiq. But the problem is running a province of 110 million people and law and order, which has been the biggest problem. In my eyes, the biggest problem in PTI has been that there has been no sea change in the law and order in Pakistan from a party that is named Tehreek-e-Insaf, the party of justice. Justice is still to be seen to be done. So there's a lot of challenges coming ahead, but I think he's hopefully going to move in the right direction, because the next year is election year.
Yeah.
Well, election campaign year,
Yeah, well, it's just funny you think about it. 2022 starts in a few weeks' time, and then we're a year away from that general election. It has to happen before July 2023. It's a 5-year term. Now, let's take COVID-19. 2021 started. Pakistan had managed the number of positive cases. It was going really well, and even to the point that the World Health Organization commended Pakistan on its record. Yet the UK put Pakistan in the red list. There was an increase in cases, but now we're back to less than 300 a day successively for 4 days in a row. How do you assess Imran Khan's record and that of his government when it comes to COVID-19?
I think that's been his plus point. Pakistan, credit to the Pakistan government, even the opposition people on radio shows we've done, and they've admitted that, this is something that's been very, very positive for Imran Khan. Because look, the biggest problem was most of the cases when Pakistan were put on the red list went from the UK or other places. The Delta variant, that was taken to Pakistan. A lot of people were locked down here. They thought, okay, let's go to Pakistan. And that caused major problems there. But they dealt with it very well. The vaccination program was a bit slow. But the biggest factor in Pakistan is that there's a lot of youth. 65% of the Pakistani population is under the age of 25. So I think the younger children and the youth are obviously their immune systems are better. So maybe that was a factor. Warmer climate. So I think they were very lucky, and they did smart lockdowns. They did very well on the lockdowns compared to its neighbors, India and others. As you remember, India was really like 400,000 cases a day. So Pakistan did very well there, and they deserve credit, like you said, who themselves gave them credit. And that was a plus point, major plus point, because look, our economy is very weak as it is. And to have a major pandemic in a country that's already trying to get on its feet, with IMF help and Saudis and others trying to help us out, bailing us out, we could not afford economic meltdown. Despite that, we've had a lot of economic issues. But when it comes to the pandemic, no doubt, Pakistan did very, very well, and full credit to the government on that point.
Shafaqat, when I went to Pakistan recently, the conversation, every taxi driver, every person I spoke to was about the ordinary Pakistanis struggling with the high inflation and increased prices. I know it's just not uniquely inflation. The currency issue with the dollar has obviously played a part in this as well. Is it the reality that the Imran Khan government is not a friend of the poor people of Pakistan?
No, I think that's far from the truth. If there's anybody a friend of the people of Pakistan and who cares for the poor people, if you just look at the Sehat card, the health card they've just done in Punjab, across Punjab, KPK first, now Punjab, everybody is eligible for healthcare up to 10 lakh rupees, which is a major problem for poor families. No doubt there's hyperinflation. When I was in Pakistan, my relative said to us that you were a big fan of Pakistan. You were telling us to vote for Imran Khan, and what should we do now? And I said, I'm struggling myself in the UK because the working class here is struggling. But the difference is that per capita income is around $1,600 in Pakistan. The wages are very low for the ordinary, people who mazdoor, etc. So the labourers. So that is the factor. And there's a problem. Look, there's one side of Pakistan that is so rich that they can afford to live on Park Lane and they can live in Dubai and luxury and in Pakistan. There's one part who makes $2 to $3 a day. That's the problem. 73 years on.
Is part of the problem also that he's made so much political capital taking on the opposition parties and their leaders who he accuses of corruption, which hasn't left much capital for him to deal with issues like inflation that ordinary Pakistanis are facing?
That's a very, very good question, because I see that. I see that as a critic of the government on this aspect, that they did waste too much time on Nawaz Sharif, and they looted, they plundered. Fine, the courts are functioning there. Nawaz Sharif is sat in London. You let him go to London, whoever let him go. There are bigger players than Imran Khan in Pakistan. That's another problem. The establishment has a very huge role in Pakistani political arena. The judges, these people are taken to courts. They have witnesses. They have money in the accounts of their workers, their cooks. But where white-collar crime is the most difficult crime to prove, especially in a country like Pakistan. The judges, they are not helping the system. The lawyers, the judiciary needs to really either dismiss these cases, say, okay, there's no evidence, or prosecute. And Imran Khan did promise we're going to bring out back 200 billion, I think, if I'm correct, if the figures are right, from Swiss accounts. That's never turned up. So there was these huge promises that the wealth will be taken off these rich people and we will put them away. They've not been put away. The cases are ongoing. So yes, no doubt, he made a lot of promises on this front, but without a doubt, Pakistan really is struggling, because no doubt, nobody can deny this, that the elite ruling class from every single party, and there are people in PTI who have made money out of that country, laundered money out of that country. Now, to prove it, that's the difficult part. But they have been living the luxury high life in London and Dubai. How are we going to get the money back off them? That's the difficult part.
Okay, well, perfect timing. We're going to take a break, our final break of the program. I know you're staying there, Mohammed Shafaqat, and we're going to carry on this conversation about reviewing the year of Pakistani politics, Prime Minister Imran Khan, and we'll talk about the opposition parties as well, including the Pakistan Muslim League Noon and People's Party as well of Benazir Bhutto's party. Join us shortly. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV. We're talking and reviewing the year in Pakistan politics, and my special guest is Mohammed Shafaqat, the broadcaster and somebody who takes a keen interest in Pakistan politics. Now, opposition party leaders, including Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, who is the son of Benazir Bhutto and former President Asif Ali Zardari, has said in recent days that he thinks these are the dying days of the Imran Khan government. And what would you say to that? But also, do you think that Imran Khan would become the first Pakistani Prime Minister to last the full 5 years term and make history as well?
I think this is obviously opposition will say things like this, and no doubt Imran Khan has been a huge economic issues because of economic issues, a lot of pressure recently. But the thing is, I don't think so. I think he will complete the 5 years, and I think he will come out at the other side of it, end of 2022, in a better position if they can control the inflation. Because the opposition is saying they're going to do a long march towards Islamabad, and if I'm correct, in March. March is always a season of long marches in Pakistan, but there's a fatigue for long marches. Darnaz Imran Khan did it, Dr. Tarul Qadri Sahab did it, other TLP and others have been doing it. But now there's a fatigue in that country. People are fed up with roadblocks in Faizabad Junction, Rawalpindi, Islamabad. So I think that I don't think there are huge turnouts for these long marches. And secondly, I think he's ridden the storm, and in 2022, if he plays his cards right, he tries to, because next week, if I'm right, they're reducing the petrol prices by 9 to 10 rupees, which obviously will control inflation. I mean, let's look at this.
And then they might increase it the week after because of international prices have gone up.
Of course, I mean, look at the petrol prices here. They're touching 150 a litre. I mean, £1.50. I mean, that's like 300 rupees a litre. So the thing is, it's a worldwide phenomenon, and that's what our community and Pakistanis don't ever look at. They always talk about Pakistan, but inflation and other issues are across the board, across the globe. And the opposition have got really nothing to go apart from inflation. Where is the politics of vision for Pakistan? They've been in power.
I was just going to ask you. I'm just going to ask you around that. How do you assess the opposition party? So let's talk about the Pakistan Muslim League of Nawaz Sharif and Shahbaz Sharif. How do you assess their year?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Obviously, there's no doubt that Pakistan Muslim League has a huge sport in rural areas, and in Punjab in particular is still very strong. Obviously, this inflation has given them ammunition. Very good. That's the job of the opposition. That's their job to put pressure on the sitting government. But they've got skeletons, and their people know their background. They've been in power 3 times. Shahbaz Sharif has been Chief Minister of Punjab, if I'm correct, around 5 to 6 times. I know I said I'm going to make Lahore into Paris. My family, my relatives right now, my sister-in-law, they're in Lahore right now, and they said they've never seen that much pollution. Beautiful roads, but the pollution, the most polluted city alongside Delhi in the whole of the world. I mean, so what about the environment? What about the changes in the law? 6 times you're a chief minister. Nawaz Sharif 3 times prime minister. Yes,
he brought the metro. He brought the metro buses. He brought the trams.
Very poor track record running Pakistan too.
He brought the trams. He brought the metro. He brought economic prosperity to that province of Punjab.
The railway.
I mean, I know Imran Khan is kind of taking the credit because he's done the opening, but the actual work has been done by the PML Noon, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no doubt. Nawaz Sharif has done good work in Pakistan, no doubt. But look at the depth, because these projects have a huge white elephants in Pakistan. So nobody looks at who's going to pay. Why are we going to IMF now? Why we keep going to IMF? Where is this, tiger? He said, Nawaz Sharif said, I'm going to make Pakistan the tiger of Asia. Imran Khan said, I'm going to make Naya Pakistan. They need to prove it now. Imran Khan has to deliver. No excuses. He has to deliver in 2022. And if he doesn't, the voters have a full right to remove him. But what is your options? Let's remove Imran Khan today in Pakistan. What are your options? Bilawal and Maryam, I'm sorry, I don't think they're really of the caliber to run a nation where you got problems of geopolitical situations in Pakistan. With Afghanistan, you got a lot of internal issues. What happened in Sialkot is no minor issue. It dented the image of Pakistan, which was being built by Imran Khan. Tourism was improving, the soft image of Pakistan, the cricket, everything was improving. But all of a sudden, this incident took us 10 steps back. So there's a huge challenge. It's very easy to sit in opposition, just like Imran Khan was. Now, when the ball is in your court, then you know how difficult it is on the ground. So I don't think they're really a threat to Imran Khan. The only threat to Imran Khan is telling his own party, his own ministers, who do blunders, who do corruption, and they're the ones who damage. Nobody's damaged PTI, Imran Khan, more than his own ministers.
Now, there was a recent by-election, a parliamentary by-election of the National Assembly seat 133 in Lahore, and the PTI candidates were expelled from standing in that election. But what's interesting about this, and I want to get your thoughts on this, it's a stronghold of the PML Noon, and their candidate, Shaista Pervez Malik, won, but the majority was only 14,000. She got 46,000 votes. But the People's Party, which would have been wiped out in the last couple of elections in Punjab, got 32,000 votes in a stronghold, hardcore New League seat. What do you make of that? And what do you make of the revival in Punjab of People's Party?
No doubt, People's Party has improved its image in Punjab by doing clever politics. They are very astute, they're very wise. When it comes, they're not jazbati like PTI or Pakistan Muslim League Noon. Zardari does play his cards right. He's the main man behind Bilawal Bhutto. Bilawal Bhutto is just a front. But they are playing...
Talking about the former president here.
Yeah, they're bidding their time, and they improved. No doubt their vote bank is improved, but they still won't make a huge dent into the mainland in Punjab. Maybe Sindh, yes, but not in Punjab. I can't see it. Maybe Lahore is obviously in the cities, but in the rural areas, it's between PTI and Noon League, and Pakistan Muslim League Noon is still quite strong in rural areas of Pakistan.
We've probably got about 5 minutes left of the program, and I just want to get a couple of more quick questions to you. What did you make of the voting rights that's now been extended for overseas Pakistanis? This is a wish of overseas Pakistanis for many decades, and political parties have always promised that they'll give votes to overseas Pakistanis. PTI and Imran Khan are the first government to do that. What do you make of that? How much impact do you think this will have?
Well, this will have a huge impact, and I can understand why the opposition didn't want overseas to vote, because they haven't got a vote bank in the overseas. If you look at overseas, there's 9 million Pakistanis outside Pakistan, and I would say 90% will vote for PTI, but there's a problem. At the moment, they're saying you need a Pakistani passport and the Nadra card. If they say if they still continue with the Pakistani passport, that will be lose a lot of votes there. A lot of people don't have Pakistani passports; they do have the Nadra card, so identity card. So that's something they need to take out. If it's just the identity card, Nadra card, then I'll tell you one thing: out of 9 million, even half, 50% vote, that's 50 lakh votes. That's huge, and they will majority will definitely go for Imran Khan and PTI, especially in the Middle East, UAE, UK, and Europe. So that's why he was very keen to get this vote back.
Wouldn't it be better that there were overseas constituencies? I don't know if you know, but the French National Assembly have overseas seats for overseas French people. Like they have a sort of Western Europe one, which includes Ireland and the United Kingdom. And there's an MP who's elected from this part of the world to represent overseas French people in the French National Assembly. Yet in Pakistan, they're going to be attached to their own constituency where their family home is and not overseas. Do you think that's a mistake?
That's a tricky one. Because if we start having people having votes here and standing from here, I can imagine we could have problems in Bradford, Birmingham, Sheffield, and that could open a Pandora's box. So I think let's leave it for the vote in Pakistan for the time being, maybe in the future, but are we really ready for that? And that's something that could cause major problems here, because we're very emotional and we're politically divided as a community. So that could even cause major problems here. So I think let's leave it as it. Try this and the electronic voting machines. Let's try them 2023, and then let's see how it pans out. And then hopefully, maybe in the future, why not?
Yeah. And what's your prediction? I mean, obviously, we're coming towards that, as you said, the final countdown, if you like, of this parliamentary term for Imran Khan. Do you think he's done enough to get re-elected?
Well, if the elections were tomorrow, I think he'll be struggling. They will be struggling, definitely. It'll be touch and go between Pakistan Muslim League and PTI. But now they've got the chance. They've got to deliver. They've got nearly a year ahead of them. There could be even snap elections. Anything's possible. Imran Khan has told his ministers not to leave Pakistan in the next 3 months. So I don't know why that's happening. So something's going on. Something's going to give. But they need to deliver. No excuse. Inflation, law and order needs to improve. I mean, this is not good enough. For a party that came on the slogan of justice, 5 IGs in Punjab have been changed. And I'm sorry to say that Bazaar Sahib, a good guy, but he's not up to the job for such a tough province to rule. So hopefully he will deliver, and the public have a right to vote him or get rid of them. But I think he will come back stronger. Imran Khan is a fighter. He never gives up. He will come back stronger at the end of 2022. And I think he will win by 2/3 majority. And you can keep this recording and let's see what happens.
I'm just going to think. I'm going to keep this crystal ball and your predictions. We're going to put in the crystal ball. And in 12 months' time, we're going to open that crystal ball and have a chat with you again. Hopefully, we'll speak in between that time as well, to see if your predictions came through. But you think Imran Khan will win the next election and he will continue to be Prime Minister?
I think so, because look, he's the best choice we got at the moment. Yeah. This man has a vision. This man has got a mindset for Pakistan. He's seen UK, he's seen life.
Okay,
he doesn't
thank you.
He doesn't need politics.
Yeah.
He wants to do something good for Pakistan. That's my honest opinion.
Mohammed Shafiq, it's always a pleasure and fascinating to talk to you. I want to wish you well and love to the family. Thank you so much for joining us there, Mohammed Shafaqat, the radio broadcaster and political commentator, joining us live from Sheffield. I really enjoyed our chats with him. I want to say thank you so much for joining us there from Sheffield. Now, we've reached the end of the programme. Where does the time go? As we finish, I want to say thank you to my special guest, Mohammed Ismail from Canada, Hamid al-Mashriqi in Manchester, Mohammed Shafaqat. That's the end of the programme. I'll be back next week. Same time, 8:30 on Wednesday. I want to thank everybody behind the scenes for getting us on air, and to you for blessing us with watching us and making us the first choice on British Muslim TV. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.